Life in Greenland. Beautiful women and the world's harshest country. What if I told you the coldest place in the world has some of the warmest women, and you can go clubbing with polar bears just outside? Sounds insane, right? But welcome to Greenland, a country where ice is thicker than trust, flirting is raw and real, and survival isn't a story. It's a lifestyle. This isn't your typical postcard paradise. Here, beauty, isolation, and brutal cold mix in a way that shocks most outsiders. How do people date when half the year is night? How do women survive, thrive, and shine in this frozen land? And how? Does life even work here when nothing comes easy? Stick around, because what you're about to see will completely flip your idea of life at the edge of the world. Let's be real. When you hear the word Greenland, what pops into your head? Endless snow? Silent white landscapes? A place where only penguins and depression exist? You're not alone. That's what most people imagine. But here's the plot twist. Greenland isn't some frozen wasteland. It's one of the most brutally beautiful, emotionally intense, and sexually intriguing places on Earth. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's remote. But it's also packed with warmth, raw emotion, and a kind of resilience that feels almost otherworldly. This country sits way up in the Arctic, technically under Denmark, but culturally in a world of its own. Its population, just around 56,000 people spread across vast frozen tundras, fjords, and tiny fishing towns that look like movie sets from a post-apocalyptic romance drama. And here's what'll blow your mind. In some of these towns, you can walk down the street and know almost everyone by name. That's how small and personal life is. Imagine dating in a place where your ex, your cousin, and your crush are all in the same bar, and there's only one bar. Now, let's talk about women. Greenlandic women aren't just surviving, they're running the show. They hunt, they lead, they party. And yes, they're absolutely stunning. Not in an artificial Instagram way, but in a natural, untamed, earthy kind of beauty that hits different. But here's the twist. Underneath the surface of this harsh lifestyle lies a raw emotional world that's rarely talked about. Loneliness isn't just a passing feeling here. It's a shadow that follows everyone. Winters can last for months with no sun. Alcohol bans get lifted and reinstated based on how bad things get. Mental health is a silent battle. But still, love happens. People flirt, fall in love, break up, and start again. This is real life on extreme mode, and over the next few minutes we're peeling back the layers to show you Greenland the way the travel guides never will. You'll see how the dating culture works when the gender balance is off, how people party in the middle of ice storms, and what happens when beauty, isolation, and survival all meet at once. This isn't just another travel doc. It's a front-row seat to how far humans can stretch emotionally, sexually, and mentally when they live at the literal edge of the earth. Still think it's just snow and silence? Think again. The harshest country on Earth. Let's face it, if you think the cold is just a minor inconvenience, think again. Greenland is a place where 30 degrees is considered a mild winter day. For comparison, that's like walking into an industrial freezer while trying to balance a cup of hot coffee. Imagine the wind cutting through your skin like knives. Add a few polar bears in the distance, and you've got the daily reality of life in Greenland. It's not just cold, it's unforgiving. But here's the thing. People still live here, and not just survive, thrive. It's not easy, but the locals have learned to adapt in ways that make you wonder if maybe we're the soft ones, and they're the ones who figured it out. How do they do it? It starts with the weather. In the winter, Greenland experiences nearly 4 months of darkness. That means no sunlight. None. Just a cold, unyielding stretch of blackness. If that doesn't sound like a psychological horror movie, I don't know what does. You might think that living in constant darkness would lead to depression and despair, and you're right. The mental toll here is real. seasonal affective disorder, SAID, runs rampant, and it's something locals constantly battle against. On the flip side, during the summer, Greenland gets hit with 24 hours of sunlight. For 2 straight months, the sun never sets. And while that might sound like a dream to some, it gets weird. The locals joke that you can't sleep when it's still bright outside at 2 a.m. Midnight sun doesn't just throw off your sleep, it screws with your sense of time. Imagine trying to figure out when it's time for anything, work, dinner, or even a date, when you don't have the natural cues we all rely on. But the weather doesn't just mess with your mind. It can freeze your face before your coffee even cools. That's not just a joke, it's reality here. Imagine walking outside for just a minute and feeling your nose snap in the cold. Your skin gets so cold that it burns. A few seconds in this weather, and your fingers are frozen. Still, life goes on. And here's where it gets wild. Despite all that cold, Greenlanders make this place home. They have developed an incredible resilience to the harsh conditions. Most people here have lived through some of the toughest winters you can imagine, and they've learned to laugh through it. Yes, they laugh at the cold. It's a coping mechanism, a way to find humor in the brutality of their world. The locals say things like, "Your face freezes before your coffee cools." And it's not just a line, it's a truth they live by every day. They're used to the extremes. The Arctic landscape isn't just something they put up with, it's part of them. The snow, the ice, the howling winds, they've learned to respect it, live with it, and even find joy in it. And the survival stories? Oh, they're endless. One man I spoke to told me about the time he had to cross a frozen fjord in 40° weather to reach a neighboring village after a storm cut off all access. He walked for hours, bundled up like an Arctic explorer, with nothing but his dog for company. The ice beneath him cracked with every step, but he kept going, telling himself, "This is just a walk in the park." That's what they do here, make the impossible look easy. There's a family in the capital, Nuuk, who spends their summers fishing from boats made of recycled snowmobiles. They don't buy new equipment. They adapt and innovate, just like everyone else. In a place where resources are limited, resilience becomes second nature. And trust me, there's a proud defiance in that. But it's not just the weather they've learned to live with. There's the constant fight against isolation. Greenland may look like a paradise on postcards, but for most people, it's a land of extreme solitude. There are no large cities, no bustling urban centers. Most of Greenland's residents live in small villages where every face feels familiar. People know each other, which can be comforting, but also stifling. And with isolation comes a heavy toll on mental health. Greenland's suicide rate is one of the highest in the world. Depression and loneliness aren't just sad topics. Here, they're part of the national conversation. Still, the people push through. They find ways to connect. In small towns where everyone knows everyone, relationships become a matter of survival. They depend on each other, not just for love, but for support when the weather turns unbearable, when the sun refuses to rise, or when the only option for entertainment is a group chat with a dozen cousins. Life in Greenland is extreme. There's no sugarcoating it. It's a place where only the tough survive, but even the tough need each other. You can't do it alone. Here, in a land that tests every aspect of your existence, community becomes your lifeline. Greenlandic women. Beauty in the cold. When you think of Greenland, you probably imagine icy landscapes, snowdrifts, and freezing winds. But there's something else that might surprise you. Greenlandic women, they're not just beautiful, they're extraordinary. Why do tourists get stunned? For one, the blend of natural beauty and the harsh environment creates a look that's like no other. You've got the Inuit features, high cheekbones, striking eyes, and thick, luscious hair that defies the cold. It's a beauty that's molded by the extreme elements, and it's often described as regal. Like the women of Greenland have inherited the ice and snow, making them look as if they've been shaped by the land itself. Some say there's a certain kind of magnetism in their gaze. The truth? It's impossible to ignore the way they carry themselves. Now, let's talk fashion. Greenlandic women have an incredible sense of style despite the freezing temperatures. They blend traditional Inuit designs with modern trends, and somehow it works. It's not just about staying warm, it's about expressing personality. Picture this: women walking through snow-covered streets wearing fur-lined hoods, oversized woolen scarves, and brightly colored boots that could easily grace the catwalks of New York. And it's not just fashion, it's confidence. Don't expect to see any timid glances or shy smiles here. Greenlandic women hold their heads high. They're strong, assertive, and unapologetically themselves. You'll see them walking confidently in their traditional garb or sporting the latest fashion trend, proving that beauty isn't about conforming. It's about embracing your unique self, no matter the temperature. Real traveler stories, one traveler I spoke to from Australia told me about his trip to Nuuk. I was in awe, he said. I'd never seen anything like it. There's this vibe. These women don't care what anyone thinks. They don't dress to impress. They dress to feel good. He went on to describe a night out at a local bar where a group of women were dancing, their energy radiating through the dimly lit room. There's a confidence here that can only be described as freeing. It's magnetic, raw, and unapologetic. In the colder regions, you expect people to be reserved, to hold back, he continued. But not here. These women, they're living their best life. But it's not just about their looks. Greenlandic women have a deep connection to the land. Most women here grow up with a close bond to the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and surviving in the harshest conditions. These women are resilient. They've been built by a culture of survival, passed down from generations of women before them. Their lives have been shaped by nature, and they carry that strength with them everywhere. However, there's more to the story than just beauty and confidence. Greenlandic women are also deeply influenced by traditional gender roles that have existed for centuries. While women have made great strides in modern society, the influence of traditional values still plays a huge part in how life is shaped here. For example, there's the idea of women holding the home together while the men traditionally go hunting. This isn't a judgment. It's just the way life is, and it's a way that works for many families. But as Greenland becomes more urbanized and modernized, those roles are beginning to evolve. Women are not just holding down the fort. They're starting businesses, entering politics, and even gaining more representation in the arts. The old rules are shifting, and that's something you can see clearly in the young women of Greenland today. They're writing their own stories and becoming their own kind of role models. The beauty standard. When you ask a local woman about beauty standards in Greenland, the answer is simple: confidence. It's not about fitting into a mold or following trends. In Greenland, the beauty standard is about embracing who you are, and if you don't believe me, just look around. The diversity of beauty in Greenland is staggering. Whether it's a woman with skin as dark as the midnight sky, or a lighter-skinned woman with striking Inuit features, there's no single standard here. The people of Greenland are proud of their diversity, and it shows in every step, every smile, and every glance. However, just because Greenlandic women are self-confident doesn't mean they aren't subject to their own set of challenges. They still face beauty ideals, but these ideals are different from the ones we see in other parts of the world. Here, beauty isn't about fitting into a certain mold. It's about strength, resilience, and living with the land. Many women will tell you that their most beautiful moments are those spent outside, in the wilderness, or doing the things that have defined their ancestors for centuries: hunting, fishing, or even just surviving. Humorous. Take. No makeup, just frostbite glow. Now, don't get me wrong, Greenlandic women do love their beauty products, but when you live in a place that's as cold as Greenland, makeup takes a back seat. Instead, there's something more powerful here, what I like to call the frostbite. Glow. You won't see the usual Instagram style filters on these women. The harsh winds and icy temperatures are their natural beauty regimen. And guess what? It works. Whether they're walking across snow-covered hills or meeting friends in town, their skin has this vibrant, natural glow that only comes from being exposed to the elements. It's raw, it's real, and it's stunning in a way you have to see, to believe. So, when people say they have the best skin, here in Greenland, it's all thanks to the elements. No makeup needed, just that authentic frostbite glow with a touch of confidence. Dating, love, and loneliness. In ice, when you think of Greenland, you probably don't think of dating drama. But believe me, it's real, and it's intense. The unique challenges of living in one of the most remote places on Earth create a dating culture that's as cold as the weather but just as fiery when it comes to emotions. With a population of just around 56,000 people spread across vast distances, small communities mean limited choices. This isn't just about who you date, it's about the whole town knowing who you're seeing. And trust me, that can get messy. In these tight-knit communities, privacy is a rare luxury. Everyone knows everyone else's business, which means any relationship, no matter how casual, becomes the topic of conversation. Imagine trying to keep a romance under wraps when your neighbor is your cousin's best friend, and your best friend's aunt is your coworker's mother. It's a web of connections that makes it nearly impossible to hide anything. But that's just the beginning. Open relationships and unspoken rules. In a place where people often find themselves living in isolation, relationships here can be more open than what we're used to in bigger cities. It's not unusual for people to have open relationships where they might see other people, and that's totally accepted. In fact, the unspoken rules of Greenlandic relationships are centered around trust and understanding. No need for jealousy. But don't think this is just about casual hookups. There's a deep emotional connection to the people you date, even if the boundaries are more flexible than usual. The harsh environment means that when you connect with someone, it's real. You're not just looking for a good time. You're looking for someone who can survive the cold with you, both literally and figuratively. Living in a place where the sun doesn't set for months, the loneliness can creep in quickly. The long, dark winters often make people crave connection, and sometimes the desire for companionship can outweigh the normal dating rules you'd find in the big city. It's a kind of desperation that might surprise outsiders, but for those who live here, it's just part of the rhythm of life in a place where survival and community are everything. Stories from expats. Trying to date in Greenland, expats who move to Greenland often find dating to be a whole different ballgame. One expat from Denmark shared his experience. At first, it felt like I was in some sort of reality show. Everyone knows who you're dating, what you did last weekend, and who you're thinking about dating. There's no escaping the gossip. For someone used to the anonymity of city life, the level of scrutiny can feel overwhelming. But in a place where everyone is connected, it's hard not to get caught up in the social web. Another expat shared how she tried dating someone in Nuuk, Greenland's capital. At first, I didn't realize how small the community was, she said. I'd go on a date, and the next day, everyone I met would ask me about it. It's like living in a fishbowl. At first, I thought it was awkward, but then I realized that's just how things are here. Everyone's in your business, and you're in theirs. But it also makes the connections feel more genuine, like there's no room for games or pretending. Rhetorical hook. What happens when the whole town knows who you're seeing? This may sound like a nightmare for some, but in Greenland, it's just part of the experience. Everyone knows who you're dating, where you went, and what you did. When you're in such a small community, the stakes feel higher. It's not just about finding love, it's about surviving emotionally in a place where loneliness is often just around the corner. Dating here can feel like being on display, and yet it's more intimate than anything you'd find in a larger city. There's no hiding, no space for misunderstandings. You either connect or you don't, and if you do, the entire town will be happy for you. Or not. Love in Greenland isn't just a private matter, it's a community affair. Everyone gets involved, whether you want them to or not. The emotional toll of love in the cold inn, a place where the weather can keep you inside for days or even weeks at a time. The emotional toll can be just as harsh as the freezing temperatures. Long nights, endless days of snow, and the crushing weight of isolation can lead to deep loneliness, even for the most social individuals. And when it comes to love, that loneliness can make people cling to the idea of companionship even more. Some couples live for the months of sunlight, while others struggle through the long, dark winters, searching for warmth in each other's arms. But love here isn't always easy. The extreme isolation, the lack of privacy, and the ever-present small-town drama can make relationships here feel like they're under a microscope. It can be hard to navigate who you are, who you love, and how you want to be seen when everyone is watching. But somehow, in a place as remote as Greenland, this level of emotional transparency also allows people to form connections that are stronger and more resilient. Alcohol, bands, and midnight parties. In Greenland, alcohol is as much a symbol of freedom as it is of controversy. Imagine living in a place where, in some towns, alcohol is completely banned, yet in others it fuels wild, unforgettable midnight parties. It's one of the most bizarre contrasts you'll find in any country. In Greenland, you could be in one town where the only drink people share is a hot cup of coffee by the fire, and then, a few hours away, you're invited to a cabin party where the drinks flow until the sun rises. First, let's talk about the towns with alcohol bans. These are some of the most isolated communities in Greenland, where the government has placed strict controls on alcohol sales to curb social problems. In these areas, alcohol is seen as a dangerous force, and many families prefer to live without it entirely. For some, it's a way of avoiding the heavy toll alcohol has taken on society in the past. Here, you'll find no bars, no liquor stores, and definitely no wild nights out. Instead, life revolves around the simplicity of nature and the quiet rhythms of everyday survival. But then you have towns like Ilulissat, where alcohol is legal but far from tame. It's a place where alcohol and the wild, unpredictable life of the Greenlandic nightlife collide in a spectacular fashion. Saturday nights become legendary as cabin parties rage through the night, with people from all walks of life coming together to celebrate, dance, and drink away the winter blues. Imagine this. It's midnight, but the sun is still hovering just above the horizon, casting a surreal glow over everything. Inside, the party's in full swing. The music's pumping, people are laughing, and shots are being thrown back with abandon. Silence of ice versus chaos of a Saturday night. The silence of Greenland's icy landscapes couldn't be more different from the chaos of a Saturday night party. During the week, the country is wrapped in a kind of eerie stillness. The sound of the wind cutting across the ice is about as loud as it gets, and the world feels like it's frozen in time. But come the weekend, especially in towns that embrace the alcohol-fueled culture, that same silence is shattered by the loud music, boisterous laughter, and clinking of glasses. It's as if the land itself wakes up for the weekend, shedding its quiet demeanor in favor of chaos and celebration. The contrast is stark. The same communities that are used to enduring the longest, darkest winters somehow have mastered the art of partying once the weekend hits. But this shift from solitude to celebration isn't just about escape. It's a reflection of the tension Greenlanders experience living in such extreme conditions. Local humor plus taboo, and then there's the humor. Local humor in Greenland isn't just about being funny. It's often a way to deal with the harsh reality of life in such a remote place. Taboos surrounding alcohol aren't something people shy away from either. In fact, it's often joked about in ways that make outsiders feel uncomfortable. One local shared, "In a small town, your drinking problem is the whole town's drinking problem. It's not so much taboo to drink, It's more taboo to be the one who's not drinking when everyone else is. This dark humor is a way for people to bond over shared experiences, laughing at the very things that could tear them apart. It's the resilience in these communities that makes the contrast between isolation and party culture feel even more extreme. The cost of living in Greenland comes at a premium, and when you first see the price tags, it's hard to believe. For example, let's talk about what $100, about 700 DKK, will actually get you in Nuuk, Greenland's capital and the country's largest city. Well, brace yourself, because it won't stretch nearly as far as it would in other countries. A meal at a basic restaurant? Around $25 to $40 per person. A loaf of bread? Nearly $5. A bottle of wine? $40 or more. Grocery shopping in Greenland often feels like an exercise in financial survival. Compared to places like Denmark or the US, where groceries and essentials might be more affordable, Greenland's costs are shockingly high. The importation process of goods is a huge factor in this. Most of the food, clothing, and basic supplies are shipped in from Denmark or other countries, and that freight cost is passed directly to consumers. For example, a pack of cereal in Nuuk can cost upwards of $8, and a pack of meat is often triple what you'd pay in the U.S. digital nomad struggles. If you're considering working remotely, think again, unless you're prepared to handle the high cost of living and occasional frustrations. The internet in Greenland is often slow and inconsistent, especially in more remote areas. While Nuuk has decent infrastructure, once you move away from the capital, the speed and reliability drop off. For digital nomads, this is a serious obstacle if you're trying to make a living online. Although many remote workers flock to the island for its natural beauty, they quickly realize that the costs, combined with unreliable internet, make it challenging to stay long-term. And housing? Well, forget about affordable rent. A small one-bedroom apartment in Nuuk can cost anywhere from $1,200 to $500 a month, and that's in a city where space is limited and demand is high. For those living outside the city, it's no better. The price of housing skyrockets when you consider the lack of construction and the high demand. Rentals are competitive and there's a shortage of properties, so finding something decent is tough and expensive. Transport. Woes. When it comes to transportation, getting around is another cost that adds up fast. Cars are expensive, not just to buy, but also to maintain. Fuel prices are high, and public transport isn't as reliable as you might expect in a developed country. Taxis in Nuuk are scarce, and the ones available tend to charge high fares. In more remote areas, getting from point A to point B can be even more difficult, often requiring small planes or boats to get anywhere. Imagine how expensive that can get. Is it worth it? So, is living in Greenland worth the extreme cost? Well, that depends on what you're looking for. If you want a life surrounded by incredible natural beauty, vast ice fields, and an unbeatable sense of isolation, then maybe yes. For the adventurous types, it's a small price to pay for an unforgettable experience. But if you're hoping for affordable living, reliable internet, and easy access to basic goods, you might want to reconsider. Living here means paying for the privilege of life in one of the most remote and unique places on Earth. Polar bears, seal meat, and survival in Greenland. Survival is a way of life, especially when it comes to food. The harsh environment means locals have to adapt in ways that may seem shocking or even unsettling to outsiders. Hunting is not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity. For the people living here, hunting culture isn't just an ancient tradition. It's woven into the fabric of survival. In Greenland, meals aren't just about satisfying hunger. They're about staying alive. For tourists visiting, the first shock often comes when they're offered raw whale blubber, a traditional dish in many Greenlandic households. It's served with the pride of someone who knows it's not just food, but a means to survive in one of the world's most inhospitable environments. Alongside whale blubber, you might also encounter seal meat, which is another staple of the Greenlandic diet. Musk ox, a creature native to the Arctic regions, is another delicacy in Greenland. Musk ox meat is hearty, rich in flavor, and offers the energy needed to get through the bitterly cold days. But if you're not used to eating raw meat, these offerings can come across as a bit extreme. Imagine the surprise on a tourist's face when they're handed a plate of raw seal liver or whale blubber. The texture is strange, the taste is gamey, and the presentation, let's just say it's not for the faint-hearted. But for locals, it's just another part of daily life. And despite the shock value to outsiders, these foods are essential to maintaining health and strength in the cold climate. It's not a matter of preference, it's about necessity. However, this leads to a delicate conversation about ethics versus survival. While many outsiders might find it hard to understand why locals eat animals that are endangered or protected in other parts of the world, Greenlanders see it as a critical part of their identity and cultural survival. Hunting and eating these animals is a matter of sustenance, not cruelty. Many Greenlanders argue that their hunting practices are sustainable and vital for their way of life. It's a practice steeped in respect for the land and its creatures, where nothing goes to waste and the community depends on it. Yet, tourists and outsiders often misinterpret these practices, bringing in Western views of animal rights and conservation that don't always apply to the unique conditions of life in Greenland. The ethics of hunting in Greenland are often misunderstood by those who have never experienced the extreme survival conditions that the locals face. For the Greenlanders, it's about balance, preserving their traditions, maintaining their cultural practices, and surviving in an environment where food security isn't guaranteed. The polar bear factor. And let's not forget the polar bear, the ultimate symbol of the Arctic. Polar bears are not just a tourist attraction. They represent the fierce beauty of the region. Though they're rarely seen in daily life, polar bears play a significant role in Greenland's survival culture. They are occasionally hunted for their fur and meat, though these animals are protected, and hunting them is highly regulated. The polar bear's significance runs deeper. It's a creature that embodies the dangerous yet majestic wilderness that locals face every day. When you live in Greenland, survival and respect for the land are never taken for granted. The harsh environment shapes the food, the culture, and the daily rituals of survival that allow people to thrive in the most unforgiving conditions on Earth. So, while the meals might seem extreme to outsiders, they are rooted in necessity, survival, and cultural identity, a far cry from the way food is often approached in warmer, more populated parts of the world. Isolation culture. Music, mental health, and expression. Living in Greenland can often feel like being isolated on the edge of the earth, surrounded by towering glaciers, vast expanses of ice, and harsh weather that keeps you indoors for weeks at a time. And while this isolation might seem romanticized by outsiders, for the people who call this place home, it's often a harsh reality. The stark beauty of the landscape comes with a price: loneliness, mental health struggles, and a sense of isolation that can weigh heavily on the spirit. The power of music in isolation. In a place where silence is pervasive, and the long winters bring endless nights, one of the most powerful forms of expression is through music. Greenlanders have developed a unique and deeply emotional connection with music as a way to deal with the hardships of isolation. Rap, in particular, has gained significant popularity, and it's no surprise. The lyrics of Greenlandic rap often reflect the frustrations and emotional struggles of life in one of the world's most isolated places. In many ways, Greenlandic rap is a tool for survival, a way to express anger, frustration, and loneliness that might otherwise be suppressed. The beats may have the same pulse as mainstream rap, but the themes they explore are deeply personal. From the struggles of growing up in such a small and isolated society to the frustrations of feeling disconnected from the rest of the world, These songs echo the quiet pain that so many locals carry with them. The raw energy behind this music is undeniable. It's the soundtrack to a people trying to break free from the silence and connect with something greater than themselves. For many young Greenlanders, music offers an escape. Artists use it as a form of rebellion, a way to voice their frustrations about the isolation they feel and the limitations that come with living in such a remote place. In a culture where opportunities are limited, where choices for entertainment and recreation are few, music provides a much-needed avenue for expression, connection, and emotional release. It becomes a lifeline for those who feel disconnected from the rest of the world. Mental health struggles and the silence of isolation. However, the silence and isolation in Greenland are not just artistic themes. They are very much a part of everyday life. Suicide rates in Greenland are among the highest in the world, and mental health struggles are a harsh reality that cannot be ignored. The extreme isolation, long winters, and a limited social support network contribute to a sense of despair and helplessness for many, especially the youth. Living in such a harsh environment means that people don't always have access to the resources they need to deal with these emotional struggles. Mental health services in Greenland are sparse, and for a long time, discussing suicide and depression was taboo. The darkness that engulfs the country during the long winter months only adds to the overwhelming sense of hopelessness that some locals feel. In a society that's traditionally been focused on survival, there hasn't always been a place for mental wellness, but slowly that's beginning to change. Cultural coping tools. In response to the mental health crisis, Greenland has been developing unique coping tools that combine traditional practices with modern understandings of mental wellness. Art, storytelling, and music are vital parts of the healing process. Many Greenlanders turn to traditional Inuit practices to cope with the psychological toll of their environment. Storytelling, a centuries-old tradition, helps keep alive the connection to ancestors and the land, offering a sense of continuity and strength. In addition to traditional practices, modern psychological tools are slowly being introduced. The idea of mental health care is becoming less of a taboo subject, and more resources are being dedicated to helping those in need. But even so, the struggle is ongoing. There's a delicate balance between pride in the Greenlandic way of life and the need to confront the realities of mental illness and suicide in this remote society. Youth rebellion in one of the world's quietest places. Perhaps the most surprising element of life in Greenland is the way the youth are rebelling against the isolation they feel. Despite the quiet and solitude of the land, Greenlandic youth are beginning to push back against the traditional cultural constraints and embrace a more globalized sense of expression. Through rap, social media, and other forms of modern art, they're exploring new ways to deal with the quiet violence of isolation. For many of Greenland's young people, the struggle to break free from the constraints of tradition and find their own identity is a battle against the long winters, the absence of sunlight, and the feelings of being cut off from the rest of the world. Rap music and modern art have become tools for young people to express their rebellion, anger, and frustration. It's a form of protest against the isolation and loneliness that dominate their world, a way to assert their own identities in a place that often seems too silent, too still. The rebellion is not violent, but rather cultural. It's about finding a voice in a place where it can feel impossible to be heard. For the youth of Greenland, the rise of music, art, and digital media is a way to break free from the chains of isolation and create something entirely new. Fashion, identity, and Greenlandic. Swagger in the frigid winds of Greenland, fashion might not be the first thing that comes to mind. After all, when the temperature drops to 30 degrees, the focus tends to shift towards surviving the elements rather than strutting down the catwalk. But Greenlandic fashion is more than just a way to keep warm. It's a powerful expression of identity, pride, and resilience in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Traditional meets. Modern, a unique blend. What's fascinating about Greenlandic? Fashion is how it beautifully blends traditional elements with urban streetwear. Traditional Greenlandic clothing, like the kusimit, a sealskin parka, and akulik, fur-lined boots, are not just relics of the past. They're still worn in daily life, especially during special ceremonies or traditional events. These garments aren't just practical. They are deeply connected to Greenland's Inuit roots, offering both warmth and a sense of cultural continuity. But the fusion of old and new is where Greenlandic fashion truly stands out. In the heart of Nuuk, the capital, you'll see the streets, buzzing with young Greenlanders sporting oversized streetwear jackets, graphic tees, and sneakers, mixed with traditional elements like fur trims or brightly colored Inuit-inspired scarves. It's as if the icy landscapes of Greenland have given rise to an entirely new kind of swagger, a blend of resilience and self-expression that you won't find anywhere else. The key here is pride. Pride in Greenlandic culture and pride in the way people choose to represent it through their clothing. The harshness of the environment doesn't squash personal style. It amplifies it. The colder it gets, the more bold the fashion becomes, creating a culture where identity is worn like armor. Women-led fashion movement. In Greenland, the fashion scene is not only about looking good, it's also about making a statement. And some of the loudest statements are being made by women designers who are taking the fashion industry by storm. Greenlandic women are redefining what it means to be fashionable in such an extreme environment. From local boutiques to international fashion platforms, women-led fashion brands are showing the world that Greenland isn't just about ice and snow. It's a hub of creativity, too. These designers often incorporate traditional Greenlandic symbols such as sealskin or reindeer fur into their creations, blending them with modern designs. Their collections reflect the sustainability and resourcefulness that are central to life in Greenland. Fashion in Greenland isn't just about looking good, it's about honoring the land and the heritage that sustains it. Ice as the new catwalk, the snowy streets of Greenland are now the catwalks for this bold new movement in fashion. With the long winters providing a backdrop of icy landscapes, Greenlandic fashion has adopted the frozen world as its own runway. It's not about warm weather clothes, it's about how to look fierce when your breath freezes in the air and the sun barely rises for weeks at a time. But it's not just about looking tough. It's about showing the world that life in Greenland has a style all its own. Greenlandic streetwear has begun to capture the world's attention, and it's becoming more and more common for visitors to Nuuk to take photos of the locals strutting their stuff through the snowy streets. The fierce swagger of Greenlanders isn't just in their attitude, it's in the way they wear their culture on their sleeves, literally. Greenland may not have the fashion scene of Paris or Milan, but it certainly has a unique, self-assured style that reflects the independence and strength of the people. In a land where survival is paramount, it's no wonder that fashion has become a powerful symbol of identity and pride. Why tourists struggle. Here visiting Greenland can be like stepping onto another planet. Between the icy landscapes, low population, density, and unique culture, tourists often find themselves completely out of their depth. From language barriers to the brutal cold shock, life in Greenland is a far cry from your average vacation destination. So, why do tourists struggle when they try to experience this frozen frontier? Let's break it down. Language barriers. Of the first hurdles any tourist faces when arriving in Greenland is the language barrier. While many locals speak Danish, the official language, and English, especially in Nuuk and other tourist areas, Greenlandic, a complex and beautiful language spoken by the indigenous people, remains the heart of communication for many. Greenlandic, or Kala-Alisut, is a language so intricate that even native speakers struggle with its long, compound words. For tourists, this can create an instant sense of alienation. Trying to order a simple coffee or ask for directions can become an exercise in frustration when the words you're trying to say are met with a blank stare. Learning a few key phrases like "Canuck Ipit," "How are you?" can go a long way, but the reality is that communication can still be tricky, especially in smaller towns outside the capital. Even though the people are friendly and willing to help, the language gap often leaves tourists feeling out of place. Cold shock. Prepare for the freeze. Then there's the cold shock. Tourists from warmer climates might have an idea of what it's like to feel cold, but nothing quite compares to the sub-zero temperatures of Greenland. When the wind is howling and the temperature drops below 30 degrees Celsius, even the most fashionable winter jackets can feel like a joke. The freeze sets in not just on your skin, but deep into your bones, and tourists often underestimate how quickly the cold can sap your energy. Many travelers arrive with spring jackets and sunglasses, only to find themselves shaking and desperate for warmth within hours of landing. Even the most seasoned travelers sometimes struggle with the extreme cold. As one visitor said, "You don't just need a jacket here, you need a strategy." And the worst part? The cold doesn't go away. It's constant. Whether you're trekking on the glaciers or wandering the streets of Nuuk, it feels like the cold is always present, making you wonder how the locals survive. Social culture shocks. But it's not just the weather that gets tourists. Greenlandics. Culture is also a shock to the system for those unfamiliar with the place. Directness and honesty are highly valued traits in Greenland, and people don't mince words. If you ask a Greenlander a question, expect a straightforward, no-nonsense answer. For those used to the polite, sometimes passive-aggressive nature of other countries, this can feel like a cultural punch in the gut. Silence is another key feature of Greenlandic social life. While many other cultures thrive on chatter and small talk, Greenlanders value their quiet time. Group gatherings can be calm and reserved, which might come off as cold or distant to visitors who are used to a more social atmosphere. You may find yourself standing awkwardly at a dinner table with no one saying a word, except for the occasional "skål." Cheers. It's not that Greenlanders are unfriendly, but rather that quietness is a sign of respect and reflection. Fun travel. Fail stories. Of course, no trip to Greenland is complete without its fair share of travel fails. One tourist arrived ready to take a spectacular selfie in front of a massive glacier, only to realize they had forgotten their camera battery back at the hotel. Another excited traveler tried to book a boat tour of the coastline, only to discover that the weather had turned violent, canceling all tours for the next few days. And let's not forget about the tourist who tried to hike up a snowy slope in sandals, because naturally, sandals are not the best footwear for snowstorms. Funny mishaps like these are common when trying to navigate life in Greenland, especially for those unfamiliar with the extreme conditions. One traveler even commented that after accidentally ordering raw whale blubber instead of cooked whale at a local restaurant, he spent the next hour wondering how to explain to his waiter that he wasn't ready for that level of rawness. Why, it's all part of the adventure. Despite these challenges, many travelers say that their mistakes and misunderstandings are part of what makes Greenland such a memorable destination. The cold shock, language mix-ups, and cultural differences only add to the adventure of it all. After all, if everything went perfectly, there wouldn't be any stories to tell when they got back home. So, while tourists may struggle at first, the ultimate reward is a deeper understanding of Greenland's unique way of life, and maybe even a few laughs along the way. Life lessons from the cold visiting Greenland is not just an exploration of landscapes. It's a profound journey into the heart of survival, strength, and the human spirit. The extreme isolation and harsh conditions force both locals and visitors to reckon with their own resilience and adaptability. What does life in this frozen wonderland teach us about ourselves? Let's take a deep dive into the life lessons that the coldest country on Earth has to offer. Strength in isolation. In Greenland, isolation is not just a geographic reality, it's a way of life. The country's vast, snow-covered expanses and tiny population often lead to loneliness. And yet, this isolation fosters an unspoken bond between the people who live here. Locals rely on each other more than ever, because with only 56,000 people spread over the size of 2 Texases, they understand the importance of community. This lifestyle teaches you how to be self-sufficient and find strength in solitude. Travelers often reflect on how, in the absence of bustling crowds, they learn to reconnect with themselves. One tourist recalled a moment while hiking alone in the frozen wilderness. "I've never felt so small, and yet so powerful. The silence was overwhelming, but somehow it made me feel like I could conquer anything." It's in the lonely, vast spaces that you begin to realize what you're truly capable of. You're forced to embrace the quiet and take pride in your own company. Survival, more than just endurance. The struggle to survive in such harsh conditions is woven deeply into Greenlandic life. Locals don't just endure the cold, they thrive in it. Survival here isn't about simply making it through another day, it's about finding ways to adapt, innovate, and respect nature's power. This survival mentality permeates daily life. Hunting, fishing, and weathering blizzards are not just activities, but a cultural imperative. It's not just about the physical survival of enduring extreme temperatures. There's a mental toughness required too. People in Greenland develop an incredible sense of mental resilience. "You never know when a storm will hit," says one local. It's about preparing yourself for anything. You don't just endure, you embrace the challenge, learn from it, and come out stronger. In many ways, Greenland teaches us that survival is as much a mindset as it is a physical act. The ability to adapt to new situations, make do with limited resources, and persevere in the face of adversity are lessons that extend far beyond the Arctic Circle. Contrasts with mainland Europe and the U.S. When you step into Greenland, the differences are stark. In mainland Europe or the U.S., comfort and convenience are often assumed. Running errands, dining out, or socializing can be easy and quick. But in Greenland, every task, from getting groceries to maintaining your house, requires a greater effort. You can't take anything for granted in a place where even basic services might be limited, and it forces you to reevaluate what's really important. Take transportation, for example. In many parts of the world, hopping into your car or catching a bus is second nature. In Greenland, however, flying is often the only way to get between towns, and boats and sled dogs are vital modes of transportation. This reliance on alternative methods makes you appreciate the conveniences you once took for granted, but it also teaches you to be resourceful and make do with less. Unexpected warmth in the cold. Despite all the physical and emotional challenges, there is something about Greenland that leaves visitors in awe. The warmth of the people stands in sharp contrast to the freezing temperatures. Greenlanders may not smile as much as people in other places, but when they do, it's genuine. There's a deep, sincere hospitality that comes with living in a place where everyone depends on each other for survival. Even in the cold, the warmth of human connection shines brightly. As one traveler put it, "I was expecting to feel isolated and alone, but instead, I felt closer to people than I ever have before." It's not the weather that gets to you, it's the unexpected kindness from strangers that warms your heart. The irony is that in a land known for its desolation and ice, people find the warmth that comes from community, family, and the shared human experience. The ultimate lesson: adaptability. Perhaps the most profound lesson Greenland offers is that life, in its purest form, is about adapting to whatever environment or situation you're faced with. Whether it's the unforgiving weather, the limited resources, or the deep cultural differences, Greenland teaches you that true strength lies in your ability to adapt and keep moving forward. In a world where convenience is often taken for granted, Greenland shows us that the most meaningful things in life come from our ability to embrace hardship, find joy in simplicity, and work together. In the end, Greenland is a place that leaves an indelible mark on anyone who steps foot there. The beauty of the land, the resilience of its people, and the harsh yet welcoming nature of the country combine to offer lessons in strength, community, and survival that will stay with you long after you leave. What Greenland really taught me is, I reflect on my time in Greenland. One thing becomes crystal clear. The country is a paradox, where the coldest landscapes give birth to some of the warmest experiences. Stepping into this land of ice, snow, and extreme conditions was nothing like what I imagined. I expected the harshness of the cold to reflect the people who lived here, distant, closed off, and hard to approach. Instead, I found a warmth that wasn't just physical, but deeply human. In a place where temperatures can plummet to 33 degrees Celsius, and where the sun doesn't rise for months in some areas, it's easy to assume that Greenland's people would be just as cold. But the truth couldn't be further from that. The beauty of Greenlandic women, the way locals interact with each other, the resilience in the face of adversity, and the unexpected hospitality I experienced shattered every stereotype I had. Greenland isn't a place where you simply endure. It's a place where you live fully despite, and because of, the challenges it presents. The harsh weather might freeze your breath, but it also forces you to embrace the simplicity of life. Here, nothing is taken for granted. Every small victory, from catching a fish to enjoying a hearty meal of seal, is celebrated with an intensity that might seem foreign to those of us from more temperate climates. And the people, in turn, have a way of gifting warmth even on the coldest of days. When I first arrived, I saw Greenland through the lens of its extreme nature, a land of desolation and hardship. But as I spent more time here, it became clear that this place is anything but desolate. It's a country built on community, resilience, and the unseen strength of its people. Even in the face of isolation, Greenlanders have found ways to connect, to share, and to survive together. And in that connection, they've created something that transcends the cold. Visiting Greenland forced me to reconsider what we call extreme. While the weather here is undeniably severe, it's the people who redefine what it means to live in an extreme place. It's not about enduring the cold or surviving the isolation. It's about thriving in spite of it, about finding joy in simplicity and strength in unity. I came here thinking I would learn about survival, but what I found was a lesson in humanity. The extremes of Greenland are not just external, they are internal too, pushing you to your emotional and mental limits and forcing you to embrace what it means to be human in a world that is always changing. Greenland taught me that extreme doesn't mean hostile. It doesn't mean uninhabitable or untouchable. Extreme places can be some of the most profound and enriching experiences if you're open to the lessons they offer. This country, with its towering icebergs, long nights, and unpredictable weather, showed me that the coldest places often harbor the warmest souls. And while the world may try to write off Greenland as too cold, too remote, or too harsh, I'd argue that it's the extremes that make it one of the most beautiful and transformative places you can visit. So, the next time you hear someone mention a place as extreme, remember that it's not the environment that defines a place. It's the people, the culture, and the unexpected warmth that makes it unforgettable. Greenland isn't just a place to survive, it's a place to live. And the lessons it imparts about strength, community, and the human spirit are ones that will stay with me forever. Would you survive a place where frostbite is normal, flirting is blunt, and a polar bear might ruin your date? Greenland might seem like an impossible place to thrive, but the people here are built for it. So, do you think you could handle a life where the cold pushes you to your limits and the community keeps you alive? Tell me the most. extreme place you've ever lived or want to. I'll reply with something even crazier. Let's see who can top Greenland. Drop your wildest place in the comments, and I'll hit you with an even crazier one from my travels. Next, a country where women propose to men. And weddings can be canceled if a goat doesn't smile. Stay tuned for this bizarre cultural twist. Keep those comments coming, and I'll see you in the next one, where things get wild.